My name's Clive Booth and I'm a Canon ambassador. I am a graphic designer, I'm now a photographer, a filmmaker. I write a little bit like yourself, I give talks like yourself, and now I also teach. After so many years of looking and seeing as a designer, I often say I'm a kind of a graphic designer with a camera.
I know that you like using one light.
And what I look to try and achieve is to get this three-dimensional light. I'm kind of an obsessive about this. The light could fall across the face here, but then fall over the bridge of the nose and create what some people term as the Rembrandt triangle. The astronaut's name is Al Warden, and he was the command module pilot on Apollo 15, and he orbited the moon nearly 75 times. Given the opportunity to meet Al, to have lunch with him, I took this camera with me and this lens. My wife came with me, and I took just one by one LED light panel. If you want to know the name, it's called Fomex, and a softbox and a V-Lock battery. This camera and a deflector. These are quite new. They're both reflector and diffuser. It's kind of a festival for science. It's called New Scientist Live, and there was a company who had these portable planetarium tents. So they're domes, and they're blackout domes, so completely dark inside. When you go inside, they have a projector, and of course they project the night sky, so you can see all the stars. So of course I immediately lock onto this and think, there's a blackout studio. Only got 15 minutes because the projector cools down, and between shows is just 15 minutes. So of course I then go and meet with Al and say, look, can we go over to the tent that was nearby? You have to bear in mind that Al's 87 years old. And so we then get him into this blackout tent. So immediately, I've now got an environment where I can control the light. This is really important. And then through that, I then gave the single light source to my wife, who's never lit for me at all. So that was an interesting experience. She's not very tall either, and I needed the light to go quite high. So I had to stand on a chair and stuff. But yeah, we diffused the light, and the light came from about this angle, and then I start to work with Al. And at that point, even in the 15 minutes, it's this interpersonal connection. You've got, as a portrait photographer, particularly, you know this from your work with the Georgian president, you know, you've got to make a rapport with people. So this has to be automatic. So when you bring this up to shoot, you're not having to think about the settings or any of that stuff. It's just shoot, you know, shoot, and you're looking and shooting. So that becomes an automatic process.
For me, it is very important to carry with me all the time the film camera, because it's not digital. You cannot see what's going on, what kind of image you already get, and you must be very much focused and think about each frame, what you are doing. And sometimes this film is never finished because you are thinking a lot, and I like it. I like this moment because it is my kind of not be so soft with cameras, because I know that these are technical and very clever cameras, and sometimes I want to think myself, what is your workflow? Well,
you're a lot braver than I am, first of all, let's just say that. For me personally, I don't use film cameras, but there is an important learning from film cameras, as I know you know, and it's something that I think young people can learn from. In an age where you can shoot as many pictures as you want, of course, what film does, it restricts you. For me, I think there's somewhere in between. So where I like to shoot a few more frames, but these days I shoot less. So to go back to your original question, my workflow, in fact, my workflow has changed, and it's changed as a result of this. This is Canon's first full-frame mirrorless camera, the EOS R. And this is a prosumer camera, and putting it very simply, this has changed the way I approach photography. The electronic viewfinder brought so many advantages to my workflow that it's very hard for me now to go back. And those advantages are with this particular camera, I see what I'm going to get. So I shoot AV. I'm racking the ISO myself, depending on the situation.
Yes.
And I'm working the, the aperture. Usually I shoot very shallow, so I'll push it as far as I can. And then we have a new thing with EOS R and RF lenses, which is this control room.
May I touch it? Great.
It's
so beautiful, and it fits so amazing in the
flip
hands.
that on. So,
it's great.
So the control ring, I set that to control the exposure value. Now,
amazing.
Here's the advantage. So if you are working with a conventional DSLR, many of us will bracket. We'll shoot a few and we'll sort of overexpose, underexpose. But what this does, it's almost half the amount of pictures I take because of what I see through the electronic viewfinder. So I see, for example, if it's mixed light, because the electronic viewfinder is telling me that. It shows me the depth of field. It gives me a split-second preview of what I've shot. And now we have a new firmware upgrade, which is incredible for portrait photography, where you can actually set the camera to not only recognize a face, but it will actually put squares around the eyes. And even if I'm shooting at 1.2, as long as there's enough light, it will nail every single frame. As a Canon ambassador, I could have anything I wanted. I mean, really, I could have... It
sounds amazing.
It is exciting. I could fill this table with probably £100,000 worth of film cameras, lenses, but what do I choose?
Yeah.
Choose that.
And last question of the last question. Where do you see your work? On a wall or on a computer?
Okay, so my workflow after the camera, 80% by the way, I would say is in the capture, maybe 20% in post-production. My workflow is through Adobe. I work with Adobe. I work with Adobe Lightroom with Photoshop. My workflow is as an ISO, 4K HDR screen, 32-inch. I work with ISO 2. That's got a self-calibration system. Because I work in print, it's important my screen's calibrated. And if you can afford it, get yourself a reference monitor.
Thank you very much. It was so amazing, and thank you.
We should talk about your career because
we'll talk about it later.
I know, but it's for me it's fascinating. The things that you've done and you've achieved.
Thank you.